All right, let's talk about something that affects pretty much all of us, but it kind of operates in the shadows. I'm talking about insurance fraud. It's this huge, multi-billion-dollar problem. But today, we're looking at the new high-tech detective that's on the case, artificial intelligence. This is really the story of a technological arms race, and it's your money that's on the line. So, why should you care? Well, let's start with this number. This right here, this is about how much extra the average American family pays in insurance premiums every single year. And no, that's not for better coverage or anything like that. It's just to cover the cost of fraud. And where does a number like that even come from? It comes from this. The FBI, along with the Coalition Against Insurance Fraud, they figure that this kind of fraud costs U.S. consumers at least $80 billion a year. That's not a typo. 80 billion with a B. It's just a staggering figure, and it really shows you the massive scale of what we're dealing with. So here's the bottom line. This isn't just some problem for the big insurance companies. See, when they lose money to fake claims, they don't just, eat that cost. They pass it right on to every single one of us in the form of higher premiums. You can think of it as a hidden tax that we all end up paying. And this is not a problem that's just sitting still. I mean, look at this trajectory. The cost of property and casualty fraud, it hit $47 billion back in 2020. But look at the projection for 2025, a whopping $72 billion. The problem isn't just big, it's growing, and it's growing really, really fast. So how exactly are they pulling this off? Well, let's open up the fraudster's playbook, because the methods, they're a lot more varied and honestly more creative than you might think. And this quote it nails the challenge perfectly. The people doing this, they don't stand still. They're constantly adapting, constantly inventing new schemes. You close one loophole, and they are already halfway to finding a new one to exploit. Now, one of the nastiest schemes is something called premium diversion. This is basically an inside job. An insurance agent takes your premium payment and just pockets it instead of sending it to the company. So you think you're covered, but then a disaster happens, and you find out you have no insurance at all. Then you've got these ghost brokers. These are scammers who set up fake websites or social media pages, and they offer these incredible deals on insurance. They sell you a counterfeit policy that looks totally real, but it's completely worthless. It leaves you just dangerously exposed. And beyond those, the list just goes on and on. You've got criminal rings that stage car accidents. You have regular people who just pad a legitimate claim, by exaggerating what they lost. In workers' comp, some companies even lie about what their employees do to get lower premiums. The creativity is, unfortunately, pretty endless. Okay, so when you have an enemy this creative, you'd think you'd need a super strong defense, right? But for years, the industry's old-school methods have just been struggling to keep up with how sophisticated and widespread modern fraud has become. This chart really tells the whole story. You'll notice the numbers add up to more than 100%. That's just because companies mix and match their strategies. But the real key here is that massive 77% of insurers are still leaning on traditional methods. We're talking about manual investigations and really simple rule-based systems that, honestly, they just can't handle the sheer volume and complexity of fraud today. And here's the side-by-side. The old way is slow, it's manual, it relies on these rigid rules that, guess what, fraudsters can learn and then work around. It doesn't scale up, and it ends up flagging a lot of legit claims by mistake. But AI, it promises a whole different world. It's automated, it learns as it goes, it can scale instantly, and it's way, way more precise. So if the new way is so much better, why hasn't everybody just switched over? Well, the simple answer is money. A full 77% of these companies say that budget is a major roadblock to upgrading their tech. It's a big investment, and that hesitation, well, it creates a huge opening for criminals. But the tide is starting to turn. In spite of the cost, the industry is waking up to the fact that the price of doing nothing is way, way higher. So let's look at how AI is stepping in to become the new detective on the beat. And this number right here is all the proof you need. A staggering 83% of insurance organizations are now planning to use generative AI for fraud detection. This isn't some niche little trend anymore. This is a massive, industry-wide shift in strategy. So how does this stuff actually work? Well, first, AI is amazing at anomaly detection. It can find that one tiny, weird detail in millions of claims that a person would just never see. It also recognizes these incredibly complex patterns, connecting dots between claims that look totally unrelated to uncover organized fraud rings. It works in real time, which means it can stop fraud before the money goes out the door. And, this is the big one, it learns. It's constantly adapting to whatever new tricks the fraudsters come up with. And this isn't science fiction. It's already happening. You've got major tech players deep in this game. SAS, for example, uses predictive modeling to give every single claim a risk score. LexisNexis uses what's called link analysis to literally map out hidden networks of criminals. And a company like FICO uses behavioral analysis to spot when a customer's financial activity suddenly goes off the rails in a suspicious way. The payoff here is just huge, and it really is a win-win. For the insurance companies, it means lower costs and they can assess risk better. For honest customers, people like you and me, it means our claims get processed faster and more accurately. And, most importantly, by cutting down on that $80 billion in fraud, it helps keep our premiums from going through the roof. But this is really just the beginning of AI's role in this whole fight. So let's take a quick peek at what the road ahead looks like in this ongoing tech battle. Okay, so right now, the big focus is on that real-time analysis. The next step is going to be much deeper behavioral analysis, maybe even pulling in things like online activity to get a clear picture of risk. Then, in the future, you're going to see AI platforms that let insurers securely share data with each other to spot industry-wide fraud rings. And then, way down the line, the big goal is explainable AI, where the system can actually tell us why it flagged a claim, which is huge for fairness and transparency. So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this huge strategic shift. For decades, fighting fraud was like a game of cat and mouse, always one step behind. What AI does is it finally gives insurers the tools to get ahead of the game, to be proactive, to anticipate and stop fraud before it can even happen. But that leaves us with one last, kind of provocative thought. We already know fraudsters are infinitely creative. So as these AI detectives get smarter and more powerful, the big question is, how is the next generation of criminals going to adapt and evolve to fight back? Because that is a battle that is only just beginning.